الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله كما قال تبارك وتعالى عز وجل يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وإياذ بالله. My brothers and sisters in Islam, our khutbah today will be about Islam and Muslims in the 21st century. It is obvious that brothers and sisters in Islam, we know there is a shift of narrative when it comes to Islam and Muslims in our days. A little bit of context from the theological perspective. At the time when the pre-Islamic eras in the Arabian Peninsula and also across the Roman empires and the things that happened at the time, we can use the history in order to understand the future. What is happening in our days today? What is it that we seen that Islam being an attention, the center of topic across the mainstream media and the politicians in the West? In order for us to understand this, we have to go back to the history. So like I said, before Islam, I'll pick a few things just to kind of lay the foundation of the topic. Before, we know there was the enslavement of vulnerable people. We know there was slavery among the people, and we know the people who have been enslaved. And there was like forcefully oppression, vulnerable caravans, and steal their properties, their merchandise. It was like a survival of the fittest kind of a thing, that people will just jump on the other caravans to steal all their properties. There was no guidelines of regulations that will punish people or will restrict people from doing such things. Literally, people were just acting upon their desires. The more powerful you are, the more strong you become. And also the abolition of alcohol and freely committing a zina. That was a thing. There was no such a thing that to claim to stop drinking of alcohol, to make restriction, and also to be free committing zina left and right. And also there was a lot of inequality wherein the slave and the master, they have different ways of how they should be treated. They have unequal rights. The slave has a lesser right than the master. And of course, Islam has condemned the majority of the Western ideology of supremacy and claiming virtue over other people. So brothers and sisters in Islam, there is a lot that we can mention. We can go down the list about the things that were happening back in the days. And when Islam came, it had to put guidelines and strict regulations that are unjust, that are inhumane, that are things that we should not even get close to. Of course, brothers and sisters, we know that the other people that were engaged in these actions, they will not be pleased with it if they do not believe in the Quran and the Sunnah. And of course, we can see how Islam, the propagation of Islam is expanding. People are coming into Islam left and right, regardless of the oppression or changing the narrative of the Muslims, calling them names, terrorism, and what so forth. But people still coming to Islam, and we can see this is a threat to the West. When Islam came, brothers and sisters, that they had to introduce the emancipation of slavery, that Islam had to put a virtue over the person who frees slaves. It did not jump into the master to tell them you have to forcefully free your slaves, but instead it encourages people to free slaves, use your wealth to free slaves. And this is what resulted in the emancipation of slavery. And of course, it establishes the consequences of oppression. You cannot oppress the other person. Islam had laid down rules and regulations and punishments that no one should oppress the other person. It doesn't matter their social status. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter their color of skin. You cannot oppress anyone. Islam has to establish these guidelines so the world can follow. And like I mentioned, Islam comes with a lot of things, but one of those is to prohibit drinking of alcohol and also condemn the illegal sexual intercourse before marriage. And these are all things we know that are against the Western ideology. They sexualize their children at the age of 14 and 15, but they deprive them from getting married at underage, like they said. So these are all things we should keep in mind, that they are not going to rest until they challenge these things, because they are being successful. People are actually functioning, they are actually pondering upon these regulations. They don't like that, to see that. So Islam had to come and give the same right to the slave and the master. Imagine in the United States, there was slavery in this country. And of course, we see how black people were being treated. We've seen how minorities were being treated. Islam come in as an ideology to abolish, to make mention that these things are inhumane. Each and every individual deserves to live equal rights like their masters. Brothers and sisters in Islam, Islam came to abolish racism, and which is a core foundation of the Western world, that they want to feel superior so they can be looked up. They don't want to be looked down. They want to see other people, the minorities, the people of color, as their virtue over them. And Islam abolishes this. There is no doubt Islam becomes the most diverse religion on the earth. It doesn't matter where you come from. So brothers and sisters in Islam, it's not a coincidence that Islam is getting this attention, because there is a reason why. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the issue here is, it is the fact that the non-believers لن يقبلوا ما جعل الله عادلا بل يريدون مني ومنك أن نتبع ما يناسبكم. The problem here is, they're not going to accept what is just. What Allah made just, they're not going to follow that. Their goal is for you and I to follow them. What is suitable for them. And this is the goal. That's why I said, before you understand Islam in the 21st century, you have to go in the history and educate yourself. Allah Rabbul Izzah has said, وَلَن تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودَ أَيْ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. The Jews and the Christians will not be pleased with you unless and until you give up on your path and you follow them. Why is it that the Muslims getting the attention? All the negativity is coming to our religion, but that does not stop the religion being flourished on the earth. It is a religion of Allah. Allah is the one who gives the hidayah into the hearts of whoever He wills. Allah does not choose an Arab and give them the religion of Islam, does not choose an African and give them the religion of Islam. Allah chooses whoever He wills on the earth. So they cannot control that. So there is some sort of psychological manipulation in this regard that we need to understand. And this is not going to be the last. They will never stop, like you heard in the Quran. And this is ever since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened? And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from Mecca. And when he came up with Islam, when they came out with the message, they said, this doesn't work with our ways. We have to make sure we shut down Islam. What happens? They target the leaders of Islam. They target the Prophet ﷺ, wanted to kill him. They target the leader of the Muslims because that is one of their weapons in order to destabilize Islam. So brothers and sisters in Islam, we the Muslims need to know the history in order to be prepared for the future. So it is noted that Islam is being a threat. Like I said, there is some sort of insecurity behind it. The success and the fame and the progression that we are seeing in the religion of Islam, a person who is not willing to accept the values and the rules and regulations, the principles of Islam, will not be rest until they see it shut down. That's their goal. They wanted to shut down Islam, but brothers and sisters, you and I, we have to continue da'wah. We have to continue the positivity. We have to continue the peace. The da'wah is working. If you talk to a non-believer about your religion, you do not know the work you've done in this religion. If you talk to a person, explain to them a concept, for example, it does not take a rocket science for anyone to understand the basic logic. When you go to the internet and Google, just type in, what is the definition of terrorism? You can see the conceptual bias, how it is defined based on the situation. And the young generation can read and write more than you and I can do, more than our fathers, more than our forefathers. So it is right up there. Tell them, if they say the Muslims are terrorists, tell them to Google and just look at the definition of what is terrorism. It will give you the answer without doing anything. So brothers and sisters in Islam, the da'wah is unto all of us. Islam will flourish, but it's not going to unless and until we Muslims stand on our path. We continue to do da'wah, educate people around our environment. The Islamic methodology of monotheistic religion has been objected by the Western ideology of affliction of oppression on vulnerable nations, and as forbidding the oppression, the expression of supremacy over others and an equal treatment of being superior over others. So there's a lot of aspects that we can look at how Islam is being attacked. Ideologically, it's coming, right? And we've seen it's not limited to the physical destruction and also the loss of properties like we've seen in Gaza. It's not limited to that. The main goal is to destabilize Islam and its ideology. And they don't understand this is the religion of Allah. Not every Muslim can stand and defend to say, I'm defending my religion, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not already defended this religion. We've seen in history when Abraham and his army, when he went to Mecca, wanted to demolish the Kaaba, right? He came in and he seized their livestock. And the people went to Abraham requesting their property, their livestock. And he said, I come to destroy the Kaaba, that house. You are not going to stop me from that. Rather, you are asking for your livestock. They said, the house belongs to Allah, the God of Abraham. This one belongs to us. Give us our properties. They said Allah has protected his house. And we know what happened with Abraham and his army when they went to approach the Kaaba to demolish it. Allah has truly protected this house. The same way Allah has protected the religion of Islam, there is no way that no one can stop Islam from flourishing on this earth. Then the advice comes to the Muslims, what do we do in this regard? To do da'wah doesn't mean you have to be in jihad or fights, no. The best of jihad is to do da'wah. It's one of them. Educate yourself and the people around you. Just tell them the reality of Islam. They listen and understand. Because you are fighting against the ideologies that will use any sort of connotation in order to change the narrative of Islam. When it comes to defending your land, you become a terrorist. But when a non-Islamic state is defending their land, it's justifiable based on their political aspirations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put them in such a situation, a double standard situation, that even a little boy at 6 years old will laugh at them. This is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will bring them a scenario that they should be just, but they are not. And Allah brings them another situation similarly, the same exactly. And Allah is testing them to see if they're going to just. And you can see they are flip-flopping. They don't want to hear the word Islam. They don't want to live in an environment that advocates for free interest. It doesn't go with their agenda. They don't make profit if we do not pay the interest to them. That's a no-no. They will fight against the ideology and they will not give up. What can we do, brothers and sisters? Is to come together as one ummah. It doesn't matter. Islam is already diverse. You and I, from Gambia, you're from Morocco, you're from Saudi Arabia, wherever you come from, we cannot cause differences on this earth when it comes to Islam. Go to Mecca, go to Hajj, go to Umrah. Wallahi, you see the most diverse nations than ever. So you and I cannot change the narrative of Islam. So it's better, let's be together. Let's support each other. Let's stand together, firm together. You are my brother. It doesn't matter where I come from, we have Islam. We have that in common, brothers and sisters. That's the only way that we can win against oppression. We can win against slavery. We can win against violence on this earth. Let's spread the peace that Islam teaches us. And one thing I'll tell brothers and sisters, the trick of the Kafirs or the non-Muslims or the enemies of Islam, when they target your leaders, they take it as a ceremony, they celebrate it, because that's their target to destabilize Islam. So we need to know that anyone who wage a war on Allah, the war is left with you with Allah. So the Muslims are to teach, educate, and make sure we spread kindness, love towards each other. Brothers and sisters in Islam, do we ever sit and reflect that the situation in Gaza could have been you and I? It's just unfortunately we live in a side that we probably might not feel that oppression, but we are all Muslims. We are all the same blood. We feel the pain of our brothers and sisters across the world. There's a lot of Islamic nations who are in oppression, who have been killed. It's not only in Gaza, it's in a lot of areas around the world. We have to feel the pain and never stop making dua for them. And it's a human nature, the reason why I wanted to elaborate on this a little bit. Sometimes when events occur, it takes a day or two, we forget. Our du'as, we forget because we move on. We get used to it. But the oppression of Muslims on this earth, we can never give up. We can never be used to oppressing any individual, not even only Muslims. It's anyone. No violence in the world. No violence against vulnerable populations. Let's not forget with our dua. Our du'as has to continue. Brothers and sisters in Islam, the unity we talked about, our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, hadith that is narrated by Nu'man bin Bashir, it said, ترى المؤمنين في تراهمهم وتودهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد إذا اشتقى عضوا تداعى له سائر جسده بالسهر والهم. Our Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, he said, you will see believers as regard they have been merciful among themselves and showing love among themselves and being kind towards each other. It resembles one body. So that if one part of the body hurts, it said the whole body will feel the stress, the sleeplessness, and also the fever that comes with it. So brothers and sisters in Islam, we are the same ummah. Let's strive to be the same people. Let's strive to coexist and stand and unite as the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course that our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us again in a hadith, he said, Al-mu'min lil-mu'min kal-bunyan yashaddu ba'dahu ba'dan. He said, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, believers are like a brick. They reinforce each other and they support each other. So we have to make sure that we feel the pain of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. Make sure we do not stop sharing the images that are educating people. It is working. And if anything you can do from your part, it is to advocate, do da'wah for them. Make dua for them. Inshallah, Allah will give victory to our brothers and sisters in Gaza. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في غزة. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان يا رب العالمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم لا تدع لنا في مقامنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا حما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريدا إلا شفيته ولا حاجة من هوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوا يا عباد الله.